Welcome, everyone, to the Currently On podcast. Today is Sunday, September the 13th, 2020. It is currently 5:22 p.m. Central Time. Now, on the Currently On podcast, we have talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about movies. We've talked about TV shows. Obviously, we've talked about music, which has really been our main focus. Talking about music and why music has been the main focus is, well, it's pretty obvious. Because I love music and I listen to music on a pretty regular and consistent basis, and I love to talk about music. So music has really kind of taken up most of our time. But we've also ventured out and talked about, a TV streaming service that you can subscribe to. We've talked a little bit about that. There are a lot of different things that we have spoken of, but the one thing that we have not spoken of up to this point is I have not offered any kind of review, a preview, or promoting any kind of books. I haven't talked about books. And why haven't I talked about books? Well, I have a friend who has a very successful BookTube channel. Now you're like, what is a BookTube channel? Well, on YouTube, there is this kind of subculture, this kind of little community known as booktubers. These are people who make YouTube videos about books. And it's called BookTube, right? It's not like another thing. It's on YouTube, but they're called BookTube because they're YouTube videos about books. All right, great. But I've watched his channel grow. He's very successful. He does a very good job at making his videos. If you'd like to look up his videos, his name is Michael Knipp. That's K-N-I-P-P. Michael Knipp, K-N-I-P-P. Hopefully I'm spelling his name right. Michael Knipp, K-N-I-P-P. You can look up his channel. If you love to hear people talk about books and review books, his channel is perfect for you. Very good at what he does. Great. But I've watched kind of how he's built his channel. And the way it really works is basically you spend a lot of hours watching other people make BookTube videos. You comment on their BookTube videos. You try to kind of befriend them. You maybe become friends with them on social media, Instagram. You follow them. You start chatting with them. They get to know you. You get to know them. So then they will promote your channel. You promote their channel on your channel. And so you have to kind of have this kind of like this community working together to try to build each other's channels. Well, that takes a lot of time and effort just right there. Watching their videos, communicating with them. And then you make videos telling everyone, hey, this month I'm going to read these books. Then at the end of the month, you make a video saying, here are all the books I actually finished this month, and then say a little bit about them. And then during the month, you make videos reviewing the books that you have completed. All right. So basically this becomes your life. Watching BookTube videos, befriending people who make BookTube videos, okay, commenting on their videos, then reading books, and then making videos about what you're reading, about what you have read, making reviews. And so basically your every waking hour is either you're watching BookTube videos, commenting on BookTube videos, reading books, or making videos about books. So that means that basically becomes your life. Books. That's not for me. That's not for me. So I immediately realized, well, if I'm going to try to be successful in podcasting, if I don't want to do a podcast about books because I don't want my whole life dominated by that. So I created the Currently On podcast because my interest is, I love to do a million different things. Yeah, sometimes I like to read a book. Sometimes it's not a book. Sometimes it's comic books, for one comic book after another comic book after another comic book, and follow an entire story arc. Okay, sometimes it's that. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do some in-depth study on film analysis. And then I go from movie to movie and movie using the tools of film analysis and how to analyze the movie, analyze the story arc, the plot, the characters, the film angles, what this means, interpreting this. Sometimes I'll get on a kick. Okay, I'm going to find, foreign films from 1975 and find, what were foreign films like in 1970, just like some just weird rabbit trail. B movies. Like sometimes I'll get in a B movies kick. I have like my own B movies encyclopedia, and I'll just who knows what I will start watching and why I will start watching it, but I'll start watching it. And then sometimes it'll be like, you know what? I don't want to watch anything. I don't want to read anything. It's just going to be music, 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 music. And then I fit, wherever that leads me. Sometimes it's like this month, nothing but classical music, all classical music all the time. And I'm going to study all the composers, study how the composition, how music is composed, why, why they did this, and how they did this, and this kind of classical music and this. And I know classical music is really a period of a time, and there's different, I'm not going to go through a whole discussion about how we classify quote unquote classical music. Okay. I understand that's a classical era. You have different other types of music that we call classical, but they really represent different eras of that quote unquote kind of music. You get the idea. But I may do that for a month. I have too many interests. Sometimes it's like, okay, I'm going to watch sports. I'm going to watch all of this. I'm just going to watch this sport hour after hour after hour. I don't know. I like to have freedom. And it just feels like with books, if you're going to talk about books, if you really want to be successful there, you really got to make it your life. And I don't want to make it my life. So I've kind of avoided the book topic because I'm like, is it really worth it? Am I going to really, like, if I do a review of a book or promote a book or talk about a book, I'm not going to reach the quote unquote booktube people. Number one, it's not even a video. Number two, I'm not spending hours trying to make friends with all of them. And I'm an outsider of that community. So that community is not going to care. So who's even going to care? So I don't know. Okay. I don't know, but here's what I was thinking. I've been reading a book, and as I was reading the book, I'm like, you know what? I need to talk about this because this book and this series of books, they really need to be read between now and November before the election, because these books they really kind of take everything that's happening and had been happening in America, and a lot of the controversies and a lot of the debates and a lot of the political arguments and a lot of the political debates and a lot of conspiratorial ideas, and they bring them all together in this series of books. And so if people really want to read them, I think they'll have a bigger impact. They need to read them now before November, or at least leading up to November, at least be, deep into the series before November gets here. So I'm like, if I'm going to talk about it, it's either now or never. If I don't talk about it now, forget it. It's over. I mean, we're in September, so I'm just going to go. So here I am. I'm going to talk to you about this series of books. I'm going to just give you some information. I'm not going to try to spoil anything for you, but I think some of you may find the book to be very interesting. Even if you don't read the whole series, you may want to just read the first one to get a kind of a feel for it. But I'm going to give you some information, and hopefully somewhere out there, someone will appreciate it. I don't know. My music podcasts have done pretty good. So this is the first book podcast, and I don't know, but we will see. So are you ready? Let's jump right in and let's do this. Now, before I can tell you the name of the book, before I can give you any information about the book, all right, I have to mention a phrase to you that you may not be familiar with, a phrase that you may never heard, you may not even know what it means, but I need you to really listen, because I think this phrase is very key to really the whole book. Are you ready? The Thucydides trap. The Thucydides trap. Now let me spell Thucydides. Thucydides. The Thucydides trap. All right. And that's it's almost like a mouthful trying to say that. The Thucydides trap. Now, what does this phrase refer to? The Thucydides trap. See, I was doing fine, and then I tell you that it's a mouthful, and then it becomes a mouthful. The Thucydides trap. What is this reference? Are you familiar with it? Now, there have been I think there's been a TED Talk about the Thucydides trap. I know there's been lots of articles written about the Thucydides trap since around 2000. Maybe going all the way back to 2011, but I know around 2015, 2016, 2017, there are all kinds of articles being written about the Thucydides trap. And I think there is a TED Talk on it. You would have to go verify that to be, maybe I'm mistaking it. Maybe it was a college lecture I was listening to. I do listen to a lot of college lectures, so from different universities. So maybe it was a university lecture, but I have spent not a considerable amount of time, but a little bit of time reading about the Thucydides trap, what it is. So when I started reading this book that I'm going to tell you about, I thought it was fascinating that they start the book this way. Are you ready? According to Graham Allison's analysis and foreign policy, I guess published June the 9th, 2017. Listen to this. According to Graham Allison's analysis in Foreign Policy is obviously some kind of publication. Seems like it was published on June the 9th, 2017. This is the analysis. Are you ready? Over the past 500 years, there have been 16 cases in which a rising power threatened to displace a ruling one, and in 12 of those cases, the result was war. Hear that again. Over the past 500 years, there have been 16 cases in which a rising power threatened to displace a ruling one, and in 12 of those cases, the result was war. So in most of the cases, when you have a rising power that threatens to displace a ruling one, bloodshed, war is going to happen. All right, that's pretty sinister. That's a little concerning. So how does that apply to us? How does that apply to the world in which we live? Like, what is going on? What does this have to do with the book that I'm going to recommend? Well, let's continue. As China, there's China, United States of America. Is one of them a rising power? Is the other one considered a ruling power? Is the rising power threatening to displace the ruling power? If so, what history tells us, there's a very good chance that it's going to end up in a war. Right? Let me continue. As China continues to gain power economically and militarily, it is only a matter of time before a showdown erupts. Those who live in the United States would like to believe that their nation's status as a superpower is safe. But is it really? This book, speaking of the book I'm going to tell you about, began as an analysis of what could really happen if America fell headfirst into the Thucydides trap. What would happen if America fell headfirst into the Thucydides trap? Okay, now this has got my attention. This is how the book starts. This is kind of like they're explaining why this book was written. So as soon as I started reading this, I'm like, okay, I'm hooked. Okay, this has got my attention. The authors say, we hope it never becomes a reality. And then it goes to the prologue. July 2018 in Switzerland. The mountain air was crisp and cool as the sun crept closer to the edge of the Alpine crestline that encompassed the tiny Swiss village. Right? That's how the prologue begins. But you get the idea that the Thucydides trap is really, this concept of the Thucydides trap is what really motivated the writing of the book. Now, if you look up the Thucydides trap, if you just do a Google search, you'll immediately find the Thucydides trap is a term coined by American political scientist Graham T. Allison to describe an apparent tendency towards war when an emerging power threatens to displace an existing great power. And then immediately underneath the kind of that definition, you'll find this. This is from The Atlantic, the news source The Atlantic. This is an article they wrote. The Thucydides trap. Are the United States and China headed for war? And 12 of 16 past cases in which a rising power has confronted a ruling power, the result has been bloodshed. That's from The Atlantic, published in 2015. So there's been lots of discussion about the Thucydides trap. So so this has me hooked. This is what this book is about. So what book am I telling you about? What book do I want you to know? What book do I want you to check out? The name of the book is Rigged. Rigged. And Rigged, R-I-G-G-E-D, Rigged, is book one of the Second American Civil War series. Now, all of that seems ominous, right? The Thucydides trap, China, America. Are we headed in that direction? What's going on? The name of the book is called Rigged. It's book one of the Second American Civil War. I mean, this has my attention. This has me right there. This has me, hooked. Right from the start, it pulls me in because it relates to what's happening. Now, yes, it's a novel, but it's a novel that's related to a lot of things happening and what a lot of people think has been happening and what a lot of people think the future will be. Are we headed Is America about to fall headfirst into the Thucydides trap? Are we going to end up in a conflict with China? What does that mean? So here is book one, again, and the name of the series, Second American Civil War. The name of the book is Rigged, Rigged. All right. Here is a book description. From the Amazon top 100 best-selling authors of the Red Storm series. These authors are top on the Amazon top 100 best-selling authors list. They wrote a series called the Red Storm series. So I'd never heard of the Red Storm series. I'd never heard of these authors. It's just when I don't even know how I ended up with the book. I ended up the book on my Kindle. I think it was one of those things that there was an ad at the beginning, on your Kindle when your screen is resting. And I saw it and I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. I tapped on it, read now, and just started reading. And immediately it started with the Thucydides trap. And I'm like, okay, I'm hooked. But so afterwards, I went and read the description. And here's the description. All right. Here's the description. If I can get it to open up and where I can have all of this here. All right, give me a second. Let me open this. I know you can't see what I'm doing. There we go. I'm trying to get the full description. America, here's the description of the book. America has been a superpower for many decades, growing in economic strength and military might. There are many who have tried unsuccessfully to defeat the United States through direct action in the past, but the winds of change are moving swiftly. A new enemy has arisen, more cunning and crafty than before. A cabal of wealthy puppet masters has created a plan to divide America from within. Have you seen the news recently? Cloaked in secrecy and blind loyalty to their leader, these masters of manipulation will embark upon a journey that will change the future of humanity. As the next U.S. president election begins, will it be free and fair or will it be rigged? Maybe it doesn't even matter who wins as long as the country fractures apart. Maybe it doesn't matter who wins as long as the country fractures apart. As long as the country tears itself apart, who cares who wins? Well, that feels like 2020, does it not? A house divided cannot stand. If you like political intrigue, coupled with hair-raising action, geopolitical chess, and cutting-edge technology, you'll love the opening installment of the Second American Civil War. Will our heroes be able to uncover the plot before it's too late? Have too many dominoes fallen to stop the devious trap? Grab your copy of Rigged and find out today. The Second American Civil War series is best read in order as each book builds upon the previous work. The reading order is as listed. Book 1, Rigged. Book 2, Peacekeepers. Book 3, Invasion. Book 4, Vengeance. Rigged. Now, I'll offer just a few thoughts. I think the book, it's a fast read. You can read through it quickly. You may, I'm not going to get into criticizing whether you like the writing style, don't like the writing style. That's such a personal thing, whether you like it, whether you don't like it. I mean, I've read books that I think were not really greatly written, but the story still just pulled me in, and I overlooked maybe some of the flaws in the writing that I didn't like because the story was just so good, and I was captivated by it. I wouldn't sit there and say this book is a masterpiece, but I still enjoyed it. So you can debate that amongst yourselves. Here's what I would say. Here's a fictional novel that takes a lot of things that are happening in our world today, a lot of fears, a lot of concerns, a lot of maybe even conspiratorial ideas, brings it together to create a novel that I think is kind of fascinating and may offer like a different way of looking at what's happening. Should we be worried about who wins, or should we be worried about the country being ripped apart no matter who wins? And if someone wins, is it going to be a legitimate win, or is it rigged? Is it rigged? Was it rigged? Well, some people believe it was rigged in 2016. Is it being rigged in 2020? Who could be behind it? Who is this powerful cabal? Is China involved? Is Russia involved? What's going on? Lots of ideas. In the book, some people will have this complaint. The president in the book, you could argue, is very maybe Trump-like, kind of unorthodox, kind of like a bull in a china shop, right? So is this kind of a pro-Trump book that, hey, Trump is the good guy and there's these powers outside of him trying to rig everything and trying to overthrow everything and he's the one to save us? Some may see this as too like pro-Trump. Some may see it not. I say just see it as a fictional novel. Forget trying to connect it to Trump or Republicans or Democrats, because that to me falls right into the trap. This book is about the country being divided and torn apart. Just read it as a fictional novel. And you, if you want to relate it to things that's happening, you can. But just sit back and kind of allow the real trouble to be silent for a while and enjoy the fictional trouble. Because in the fictional trouble, typically it always works out in the end, right? So allow it to use it as a little escapism that's connected to the real world. Not escapism that's like some fantasy world that has no connection to reality and it's just completely make-believe and it has read maybe a little escapism that is connected to the real world, and maybe you'll find it interesting. Maybe you'll find it fascinating, and I think it's worth your time. It's a quick read. If you have Amazon Prime, you can read it for free. I have it here on my Kindle, and it's called Rigged, 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 all right? And let me give you the names of the author just in case you need it. I think you can find it relatively easy. Let me give you the names of the authors. It's James. There's two authors. James Rosone, Rosone. Maybe I'm saying his name right, incorrectly. James Rosone, Rosone, and Miranda Watson. James Rosone, Rosone. And Miranda Watson. All right. And these are best-selling authors of the Red Storm series. Now, this is the new series called The Second American Civil War. The first book in the series, you need to read them in order, is Rigged, Rigged. There you have it. The Thucydides trap, that's really the driving force. That concept of the Thucydides trap really drives this idea. You can read it. You can tell me what you think. I've seen a lot of criticism on it, but I think a lot of them's like, this is a pro-Trump book. Just read it as a fictional book. It's fiction. And maybe you can relate it to certain things. You'll see. And maybe your political perspective will greatly influence how you read it. And that could be a whole discussion in and of itself. But I thought I would bring this to your attention. My first book promotion, review, I don't know what we call it. I don't know if we'll do more. I'm still trying to figure out what the future is of the Currently On podcast, but I thought I would at least just throw this out there, and whoever hears this, maybe you'll benefit from it. So go out, check the book, Rigged. If you need any help, email me at newsif@yahoo.com. If you can't find it, you need a link. newsif@yahoo.com. newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. I'll be more than happy to send you a link or help you find it. If you have read the book, hey, tell me what you think. All right, everyone have a great day. Remember, I say this at the end of every episode. Life is way, way, way too short. Get out there and enjoy it. Enjoy the small things. Enjoy life. It's way too short. All right, everyone have a great day.